Hello everyone, it's Jessica here, your Queen's Commerce Admissions Ally Coach, and today we're going to be tackling the Queen's Supplementary Essay question number 1. So how do I best answer the what is important to you question? Well, in this video we are going to find out. So let's look at the question itself first. So the question is, what is important to you and why is it important? So really this question is asking what it is that you value. And you're going to have a maximum of 2,000 characters with spaces. I know that a lot of you have already been practicing the SEs and have done the November set of questions. So if that is the approach that you've taken, this question is going to be very similar in a way to the November question, which was, tell me about who you are and what are the elements that have shaped who you are. So the reader really wants to get a sense of your overall brand theme, which you've been working on through your brand identity blueprint. As a first step, I really wanted to encourage you to take a step back. Open that Excel sheet, see what you've written, because the brand identity blueprint is really based on the building blocks of who you are. So there's the who, which is your values and your skills. Your nurtured values and your natural skills are the foundation of who you are. So when you're going to identify what is exactly the value that you want to emphasize in this essay of what is important to you, I encourage you to go back to that place. You then have your niche. So this is the theme of your identity, allowing people to understand exactly who you are. So maybe this means that you are a healthcare entrepreneur. Well, how exactly have you came to be that person? So that's where your story is. That is the why. So where have you been exposed to this area of your niche? Maybe it's because you had family that had that type of role. Maybe it's because you've done a significant amount of research, but also achievements. So how have you actually lived that out? Lastly, you're going to look at your value proposition, which is going to be a thread throughout all of your essays. And this is going to be what exactly are you able to offer the program? Maybe this means that because of what you've written as a value, that's going to make you a really great team player for Queens. Maybe it means that your way of thinking, the way that you approach problems and find solutions, is very similar to the values that Queens mentions on their website. So if you identify also looking at who are you going to be as a student, as a teammate, and then ultimately as a leader as you look to transition after graduation. So we've developed here an essay template framework, that you can follow in order to write this essay. So first you're going to have a hook. The hook is really a statement or a preview of what's to come. If you think about it, these admissions officers have been reading applications all day long. And you're going to need to find a way to stand out. You want to catch their attention. You don't need to fill in complete information here in this hook. I know that some students struggle with, they want to have a lot of their greatest points right at the beginning, but really it's better to have less is more. So have them gain interest, write something thought-provoking, and then have them want to understand a bit deeper. The next part is the context. So you're going to explain. If the question is, what is important to you, you're going to describe that value in a very unique way. And the background or the story, as we said in your building blocks, that made you have that value. This is an example of how it's important to you today. It's about what has led up to this point. So really keep that in mind. You don't need to go into great depth into what it is the activity that you want to describe within this particular essay. And this might be how you were raised. It might be an extracurricular. So if you have been doing a particular sport your entire life, that may have really shaped what's important to you. And that doesn't necessarily need to be the sport itself. Maybe it's about the values that you developed throughout that experience. The catalyst is going to be when you discovered this was really important to you. So with mini essays, we often look for your ability to really demonstrate the before you and the after you. So who were you before this experience? And then after. And you don't need to be an entirely different person. But maybe you already had this value. Maybe this was already very important to you. But because of a specific circumstance, it made you realize how important it really is, and that propelled you to become who you are today. And if you're trying to understand in a deeply rooted way how you've really came to be, I encourage you to employ the 5 whys, which we'll talk about in the next couple slides. And then lastly is the outcomes. So based on what's important to you, based on that catalyst that you've mentioned, the experiences that you've had and really your story, how have you lived this out? If you say this is so important to you, we are going to need concrete evidence in order to add to the credibility of your essay. So let's break down step by step how exactly you're going to write this. So as I said, there's going to be a hook, but I really encourage you to wait until the end or the beginning to have that in. But you want to have a strong understanding already of what it is that you're going to write about before you go into tackling that one sentence statement. So let's jump right here into the context. So the context is really going to be the value that you identify plus the story behind it. So go back to that brand identity blueprint that we talked about to try to really dissect that. I would try to really make sure when you're focusing on the story, maybe mention 1 to a maximum of 2 elements that have shaped this value. You don't want to go overboard explaining if maybe the value that you identify is collaboration, that you're a collaborative team member in every environment that you're in. You don't need to go through and show 5 different examples of how you've done that, but 1 or 2 very key ways will really add to that story. The next part is the catalyst. So I mentioned before the 5 whys method, so let's look at exactly what this is. You're going to take the value that you've identified, and then you're going to ask yourself, why is that important? So, as we said, if this value is really important to you, there must have been a time where you've discovered its importance. And so if you keep asking your question this again and again, I encourage you also to look at this website, which we will list. You will be able to identify the root cause of whatever it is the value you've identified. So you want to say the value, why is it important? Why is that you've identified important? And then keep going through this exercise until you're able to really show something at a more in-depth level. And then there's the outcome. So this is where you're going to prove it. So how do I prove that something is important to me? Well, you need to have demonstrated that you have been able to live out that value. So this might be through your extracurriculars. So maybe you've started a club at your school. Maybe you're a member of something that's really allowed you to make an impact. Maybe it's your sports or other activities, or maybe you decided something was very important to you. So you decided to start a business in order to really live out that cause. The next could be an encounter. So maybe it's how you handle the specific situation. If you say that the value you have is bringing people together, when have you brought people together? Think of something specific and what was the result of that? Or it could be a task. So maybe it's the type of role that you play in a specific scenario. Maybe there is a consistency in the way that you interact in group work. Can you think of one way or one specific scenario where you've been very successful in really living out that value? And how have you contributed to a positive outcome? You're going to want to mention one, I would say ideally, but if you do want to mention 2 different ways, you can certainly do that as long as you're keeping up with that word count. So let's look at an example, and this is going to be, we've written here character count as well. This isn't set in stone. If there are areas that you want to identify more closely and really go in depth with, please do feel free, but this outline is going to be a good base to keep you on track. So let's start here with what this person has written, and we'll start with the hook. So this person says, many languages have a term that holds so much meaning that even native speakers have trouble defining it. For Greek people, this term is philotimo. Okay, so this is a very interesting hook because they have told me nothing about themselves as of yet. They haven't given me the background of exactly why they're mentioning it, but they're bringing up what is important to them in a very unique way. So this encourages me to want to learn more. So let's go into the context. So this is the value and what led to it. So philotimo is the concept of love, respect, and kindness for your community, family, and friends. It is about creating a sense of collectivism and the belief that we're all in this together. It is something my family instilled in me from a young age. Growing up in a Greek household, my parents always emphasized the importance of cultivating a strong family dynamic by coming together. No matter what the occasion, birthdays, remembrances, and even when I hit my first home run, our household would host gatherings for family, friends, and members of my community. Okay, so let's take a look at this. And this is really a good example of bringing in a common concept, which I would say would be coming together. Many people could write about this, but they're doing a spin that is very personal to them and their upbringing. So you notice here, they're really providing you the story behind it. They haven't just said they've learned about this word and it is important to them or the skill. They're giving me the background story. So they're talking about their upbringing specifically, but then also how it really bleeds into other aspects of their life. So not necessarily just in family gatherings, but this tells me a bit about how this person thinks, which is really more of a collectivist mentality. Then let's go into the catalyst. So this person says, I have never realized how important philoximo was to me until it was compromised by COVID-19. This year, it became clear that one of the most important things we as humans have is our ability to be connected at an intuitive level. This unification has allowed us to evolve at an extraordinary trajectory. But when we're divided, it can have the opposite effect. So this is a very insightful statement. They've mentioned when, as we said, did it become very important to them. So, or when did they realize its importance? And they've said they realized this when it was compromised. When coming together was taken away from them, that's when they were really able to understand its value. And then they've made a statement here. So that can be applied to many different situations. So you will notice that this person hasn't necessarily said, okay, this was compromised by COVID-19, and this is exactly how it impacted me. What they've done is something that's universal. I think with this explanation, it can be talking about themselves, but also other people and how the world functions in general, which is really how they're able to get to that depth. So now let's go to the outcome. Again, this is going to be where you prove that you actually live your values. This isn't something that you just say. This is really part of who you are. So this person says, when I was tasked with leading our school's largest club, Self Spirit, I drew upon my philoximo ethos to create an empowering environment for its members. However, from grade 9 to 10, our membership decreased from 50 to 20 because there was nothing unifying us. So here they clearly identified a problem, and now they're going to talk about really how they solved this problem. So it says, before COVID, I reassembled the club from the ground up by holding a strategic framework summit with the executive team at my home, where we provided lunch for everyone in true philoximo fashion. During the summit, we collectively defined our club's mission, vision, and values, and we emphasized all of these when recruiting new members. Today, our membership is at an all-time high of 147 members, and we're working under the limitations of COVID to host virtual club summits to keep the unification alive. So this is a really interesting way of proving it, and I would encourage you to take a similar approach, because what you really see in this section is that it's kind of an essay within an essay. So they're explaining the story from top to bottom. So what was the situation? They started this club. That's the context. The catalyst that prompted them to do something differently, which was membership was decreasing. That challenge that they faced. How exactly they went about tackling this problem, which was by defining the club's mission, vision, and values. And then what was the result? How are they able to make an impact on others, which was increasing the membership, and also how they're adapting to this unique world. And then lastly will be the outcomes. So how will you continue to really live out this value? So as a prospective Queen's Commerce student in these unprecedented times, I hope to use my philoximo approach to bring everyone together. So you see, this isn't something very in-depth. It really just ties into who they're going to be at Queen's. If you want, you can include more information here on the outcome section. That's going to be entirely up to your preference and where you would rejig some of the characters otherwise. But I think at the core of this essay, you're really wanting to focus on explaining who you are. And from then, you can let the reader make the connection at greater level into how you're going to continue to become this person in the future. That's all I have for you today on this question. Best of luck. Of course, if you're an Essential member or a Premium member, continue to ask us any questions and work with your coach. And if you're looking for more support, we have the Essential package, which is going to be the starter package, all of the videos, plus one-on-one essay coaching and email support up to 3 hours. So if you really need someone to go back and forth with you to understand what are the topics, have a quick look at your essay and provide you with feedback, you can go with the essential package. If you want to transition to the premium package, we also have this option, and this is where you're going to get access to all the boot camps plus full admission support from your coach. So you'll be paired with a coach. What we'll do is we'll work with you week by week, whether that means 6 months before your application. Obviously, if you're watching this video right now, that's probably not the case, or even a few weeks. We will be able to modify the program to your needs, and that will be unlimited coaching and revisions. So best of luck.